Hey Trekkies, it's summer, and you know what that means. It's time for Creation Entertainment's Trek to Las Vegas 2025. This year, the convention has been expanded to a 5-day schedule, August 6th through the 10th at the Rio Las Vegas Hotel. Meet all your favorite Star Trek pros in one place, and hey, maybe you swing by Vic's Lounge and you see our panel. It's a great way to meet people in person and have some fun with your fellow Trekkies. If you can't make it to Star Trek Las Vegas, of course, there's also other events around the country this year. Trek to Orlando, August 23rd through 24th. There's the Trek to New Jersey, September 6th and 7th. And finally, the Trek to Chicago, November 22nd and 23rd. We're looking forward to meeting as many of you as we can this year. So make sure that you get ready to trek to Las Vegas.
This is Kirsten Beyer
and David Reed, and you are listening to Open Pike Night's
Strange New Words, where we'll answer all of your writing cues.
I see what you did there, Kirsten.
Is this thing on? Hello, hello. Welcome to Open Pike Night, the Strange New Worlds podcast where your calls are the prime directive. I'm your host, John T. Bolds, here tonight with an exciting new segment of the Open Pike Night lineup, Strange New Words. Your host will be speaking with some of the writers of Strange New Worlds Season 3 to give you a little extra insight in addition to our regular season coverage. But first, let me introduce my co-hosts. Unfortunately, Jesse could not be here with us tonight, but with me, as always, is the man who always knows something isn't quite right with an Open Pike Night recording, but he can't get past our pesky delusions. Host of Green Shirt and Newbies Trek Through the Next Generation, Cameron Harrison.
It's my rigorous intellect.
And tonight, we're here to have a little Q and A with the writers of Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 2, Wedding Bell Blues. We've had a chance to chat with both our guests before, but we've manipulated reality to get them on the Open Pike Night stage together. So let's jitterbug our way into the spotlight with Kirsten Beyer and David Reed. Welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Excited to have you.
Yeah, it's great to have you guys.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Especially for this episode, I can't wait to talk about it.
Oh man,
I'm just going to jump in right. Maybe my favorite episode of Strange New World so far. At least my favorite comfort episode. I'm just going to put that out there. Lay all my cards on the table.
It's a super fun episode. Yeah.
It is a lot of fun. I just rewatched it, and we were saying before we started recording how long ago it was that Kirsten and I started working on this episode. I mean, it was the beginning of January of 2023.
Wow.
When we were in the writer's room. And it has changed a lot since then. We've been through many drafts and many permutations. Just a taste of how big of a change. Like, the first draft definitely didn't have Trelane or Q.
Oh, wow.
It didn't have a wedding. It didn't have...
Was it still called Wedding Bell Blues?
It was not called Wedding Bell Blues.
No. I actually reread that first draft this morning just because I was like, where did this thing start again?
Oh, man.
Because I knew it had come a long way, but wow.
I can tell you the genesis of this episode.
Okay.
Which goes back even before 2023. This goes back to 2021. I came in for season 2, and one of the ideas that I had at the time was wanting to do something for the Federation Centennial, but the year wasn't right. And so I was like, okay, well, next season we'll get to it. But then at the beginning of season 3, I was not available. I couldn't come back to the show. So I just pitched the rest of the writers. I was like, hey, you guys, you have to do something for the Federation Centennial. 2261, like, this is great. The timeline lines up perfectly. And we had a bunch of different ideas of what that would be, none of which are in this episode. And I came into the room, like, when I finally was available, the room had been going on for a couple months, right? And so there was a version of this episode that had kind of sprung from the sort of the collective writer's room. And then Kirsten and I kind of took it and we did a draft that had no Trelane, did have Corby. Yeah. Corby was sort of the main event of that one, I feel like.
Yes.
Spock. It was always about Spock. It was always a Spock episode. But it ended, instead of a big wedding and a speech about getting Christine to understand her actual feelings for Corby, it was Spock giving a centennial speech because his father couldn't make it to the party, and so he had to give a speech that was about being sort of a son of two worlds and how that's the point of the Federation and how the beauty of the Federation was that it was born out of difficulty. So like the little almost joke speech that Pike gives at the very end as just to like, okay, well, anyway, the bar's open.
So good.
That was actually the original like point of the episode. And it just was not hitting emotionally. And
well, as I went down memory lane today, what I was remembering was that because like usually the first episode of this season will sort of like ground you in where everybody is and what's going on and kind of like what some of the bigger starting points for the arcs are going to be. But our first episode was the part 2 of, so it fell to this one to sort of reset. It's a few months later, ship's being repaired, and now we're going to head off and really start our new season. And we wanted it to be light. We wanted it to be bouncy. We wanted it to be fun. But like every single one of our characters had like major drama that they were wrestling with. So it was really hard to like find the fun in, you're dying and you've got serious PTSD. And it was.
To speak to that, there was a very big difference at the end of episode 301 from the first draft, which was that Ortegas died.
That's right. Davey told us originally we didn't know.
Yeah. And so we were going to come into this episode thinking, I mean, and we obviously know that she wasn't going to be dead, but we wanted the audience originally to think that she was dead across that week. And so this episode, we played a lot of tricks, like to have, it was Uhura going to Ortegas's brother's house on Earth. And you thought she was there to like pay her respects. And then we found Ortegas was actually just living down there and recuperating at home. But that just kind of speaks to one of the big changes in the premise, which was instead of being all kind of drama and trauma, like all of their battle wounds, both emotional and physical, it ended up being much more just about their feelings in a fun way, because like Kirsten said, like it was just the episode 1 was just so heavy with all that we needed to take a lighter touch.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Well, there's an elephant in the room, of course, and you've touched on it, David. John, should we just get that question out of the way?
Let's go ahead and get it out of the way. There's a lot of speculation leading up to this episode of whether Rhys Darby's character was going to be Trelane or Q, or, would you be confirming that 40-year theory that Trelane is a Q or part of the continuum? The episode never quite comes out and says what he is. I mean, we all know the voice at the end, but we are gathered here with the writers of the episode. Can you confirm whether Trelane and Q are the same thing? And what is the wedding planner? Who is the wedding planner?
Kirsten, I don't currently work for the Paramount Corporation, so I am not going to share this. You are responsible for this answer.
Are you able to say?
I don't think I can say anything that the episode doesn't.
Okay.
Is really what it comes down to.
That's fair.
I like my job.
Yep. And we don't want anybody to lose their jobs or get in trouble.
Let's just ask this then. What is the character's name in the script?
Oh, you know what it is. Okay. Because I don't work for the Paramount Corporation, I'll tell you, I do believe, whether or not this is literally exactly Trelane is something that is left for speculation. But certainly he looks like Trelane and talks and acts like Trelane. And certainly there has, as you said, there's been speculation for decades that those entities at the very least are related, that they are branches on the same tree.
Mm-hmm.
And so certainly in the script, when the entity at the end shows up, it's a single letter, character name.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was one of the really exciting parts to me, was to kind of put those ideas together. And to, the last time I was on this podcast, one of the things I remember talking about was that we are merely stewards of Star Trek as a franchise. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't say what people will do with it going forward. But what we wanted to do was tie those ideas together a little bit. And I think at the same time, there's no one in the writer's room who, more than Kirsten and I, wants the canon of this franchise to make sense. And so there was some resistance to certain parts of it because, there's some timey-wimey that happens with Q, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think they are entities that work in mysterious ways. And this is another example of them working in mysterious ways. And you can't think too hard about it because it's not going to make a ton of linear timeline sense, but they're not linear beings.
But with Q, it could be anything. Exactly. Or Trelane, or both if they're the same. Whose idea was it to have John Delancey come in then? Who pitched that?
I think it was Akiva's, because Akiva Goldsman is just friends with John Delancey from Picard and things. So I think it was him. I think the rest of us weren't quite bold enough to say okay, well, we should fully tie that knot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and also we weren't in the room every day to argue about it. It was just kind of happening. And so we're like, well, alrighty then.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Kirsten, as you said, this is basically the second premiere of the season, right? Episode 1 kind of finished up season 2, and this is the one you're introducing new characters. You're establishing where the other characters currently are. You're setting up their arcs for the season.
Mm-hmm.
You're setting the tone for the rest of the season. You are sprinkling in some amazing little Easter eggs for plot points in later episodes that I only caught on my second watch.
Yeah, you are.
I guess my question is just how did you make that feel so effortless?
Oh my God.
How did you balance all that? I mean, it's impressive. The second time I watched it, it just dawned on me how much you're doing in this episode. And it still just feels like a really fun standalone story.
Well, I think it's because when you're putting it together, you're never thinking about the whole thing.
Okay.
You're just really living in it kind of moment to moment and letting each one be as fun as it can be. I mean, I ended up near the last rounds of revisions, doing a lot of work on the Spock Corby scenes when they figure stuff out and running through that whole patch of, trying to figure out how to break the spell. And it was just so fun because it's such an absurd situation, especially for Spock to be in.
I'll say, I think that's when the episode really hooked itself to me, when I was like, oh, Spock and Corby have to work together to figure this out. Genius.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
Brilliant. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that for us in the writer's room, when things started to come together, was the idea that it's the scene when they're doing the rehearsal and Corby is just being kind of petulant and being told to stand to the side and messing with things. That was when we were like, oh, there's just a lot of comedic potential in this guy who we're meant to take so seriously. You think that the story is going to a place where, Spock is going to have to just accept that this guy is maybe, a little bit better than him in some ways. He's just so impressive and so smart, but also has such a keen grasp of, obviously he's human, so he understands human romantic love better than Spock does. But when the story turns and now Corby needs Spock's help, that was when it, to us, kind of came alive.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think better for Christine. You know what I mean? Is really the key to that. And also, it was we had to do such a big reimagining of it. Because the Corby canon is this much older guy. And you're sort of what are the two of them doing together? And
also, he's a robot.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's that. But I mean, I'm imagining the robot is a lot like what he was. before. But it was more just like, how is our Christine going to fall in love with this guy? Like, what would that have to have been? I just remember there's a lot of stuff that I wrote that didn't make it into the script, where we were actually showing some of those early moments between them.
Oh, yeah. We originally had a whole section of the story that took place before Corby and Chapel arrive on the Enterprise, where they were on their dig, and they are going about their archaeological business. And it's just sort of the backstory of their love. And when things changed structurally for the episode, we lost that segment. But it was always fun. It was always like kind of neat to see them working, because then you got to really see both of them in their element. You got to see why he was impressed with her and why she was impressed with him.
Yeah.
Would have made a nice little short trek between that 2-year break kind of thing. Yeah. And with Corby, he walks the line of like insufferably smug, but also charming and really more likable than I thought he would be when I started watching the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a feat rarely accomplished outside of Hugh Grant characters, maybe. Just how did you find his character? Like, how did you approach that?
There was a lot of discussion about how we were never going to like him no matter what, because he was getting in the middle of our, the couple that at least hopefully some fans are emotionally invested in Spock and Chapel as a duo. And so it's a classic TV problem. It's the problem of, these two are not going to be together right now. And so something is standing in their way, and we want to try our hardest to make that guy not someone that the audience just immediately rejects and hates. But how do you do that? And one part of it is the writing, right? But a really big part of it is the casting. And I think we really lucked out there. He is just so charming, and his accent, amazing. So that really helped a lot.
A good accent can go a long way.
He really did bounce in the auditions. Like I feel like I watched 8 or 10 of those guys, and he was like the second one. And I was like, oh, well, that's him. Do I have to watch the rest? Because that's him.
I don't think you were there. We were watching the auditions at lunch in the writer's room one day. You were, I think, off doing Academy stuff. And it was like something came over the room. Like, and primarily the female writers, I would say. But there was.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't dare to ask why that would be, but they definitely had a reaction, and it was love at first audition.
Yeah,
I do love the scene between him and Spock in Spock's room, where he talks about his rigorous intellect, and then Spock responds, and they give the eyebrow arch, and it just does so much to tell you about both of their characters, but also tells you about Chapel, who is obviously attracted to both these men who have similarities. And you're also just basically talking about plot stuff and why they're unaffected. And it does so much in 2 lines. Like it's a really great moment that I think like gels the character.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Thank you for so many great Sam Kirk scenes too. Like it's
thank you.
Everybody, I don't know if anybody
loves Sam Kirk.
Thought that he was going to be so popular, but everybody loves Sam Kirk. And it was great to see him get so many scenes here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments of the episode was Spock saying I can't even say it out loud, but Spock saying that your brother, that everybody loves James Kirk more. And that whole thing I just love, because it's just like you can feel that like Sam is hurt by that, but also he's Sam, so he's just like, okay, buddy, we're gonna get you through your wedding jitters.
Maybe this is more of a question for Kirsten, who was there in the writer's room since season 1, but as this is the first season that you wrote after season 1 started airing, like do you feel you approach things differently, either based on hearing things from fans or just by actually watching the show as an audience member and not being so inside of it? Anything you feel like you kind of picked up on or like, I will run with that more?
I don't think, I think the thing from the fans that we were sort of like writing by that time was just how much everybody seemed to be enjoying it. Mm-hmm. So we felt very free to sort of like keep going in the direction we were going, but also like find ways to go kind of deeper that way, like we sort of had a sense that it was gelling and it was working. So you weren't going to like screw with it too much. But, and yeah, I guess, yeah, once you can see it and you can see everybody in the environment and how people play off of each other, certain dynamics that I remember really popping were like Ortegas and Uhura.
Yeah.
Una and Benga. And for me too, I'm always looking for who are the people we haven't seen together yet. Because a lot of times you end up, pairing the same people kind of over and over again. And I'm always looking for, can we have these guys who never talk, like hang out for a little while and do something?
We all want that too, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We always appreciate it.
Yeah, sometimes in the writer's room we call it putting the different Barbie dolls together. Like you are thinking of them a little bit as the action figures on your shelf, and you're like, well, what is the pairing that we haven't played with yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Well, speaking of pairings, something else I love about this episode is that it's very much a romantic comedy, but it's also still completely a Star Trek episode.
Yes.
And I think you do that by, it's the classic kind of, we're stuck in an alternate reality and how do we solve it? But instead of the Enterprise blowing up being the stakes or the multiverse collapsing, it's, this relationship. And I think it's especially highlighted in the bar scene where they're explaining how Chapel and Corby fell in love, and you're name dropping things like the solar plane and other things I'm sure the science advisor had to come in and assist with. So, was that like an intentional balance you tried to strike while writing this episode?
Always. A lot of times we start with genre, like targets we want to hit in terms of this is horror, this is thriller, this is like whatever. But then always the task is, where's the Star Trek in it? Like, what is the thing that's going to make it feel like it's still our show? And it can be really easy to lose track of, to be honest with you. But then when you make a big choice, like, oh, well, it's an omnipotent being. Well, then, okay, now I know what show.
Were there any particular moments or scenes you struggled with or found easy? Or
in this one?
Yeah. Was bringing like the solar plane into their love story, was that an intentional choice? Or
I think that comes from just looking for specifics when you are like, it's one thing when we're sort of outlining the episode to say, and then Corby is going to tell a story and then Chapel is going to kind of pick it up and finish, like that. It's a romantic moment and we get some of that backstory. And it's another when you're sitting down with the script, like with the blank page, and you've got to turn that into a scene that actors can play. And very often it's finding the specific little details that feel accurate to the characters, that feel like, oh, this is a person who would know about this thing. This is a way that we can reveal something about Chapel's backstory that we didn't really know before. And all of those things are what we call WPs, or writer problems. Like they're not the writer's room's problem. They are the individual writers of the episodes.
I gotcha.
Oh, okay.
In this case, because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike, and just a lot of there was a lot of hands involved in this, like a lot of people chipping in with ideas once, later in the process than we usually would. Usually it's a very collaborative process up until you have a draft, and then it becomes kind of the showrunner and the writer of the episode going back and forth. And in this case, I feel like we had half the staff taking stabs at moments or scenes, or what if we tried this, just to kind of make it feel like it's serving all of the different masters that it had to serve. Like Kirsten was saying earlier, it needs to feel like it's sort of the premiere for a bunch of the stories that are going to carry forward. Obviously, Beto and meeting, Ortegas's brother, and like there you could just go down the list and figure out like each character is kind of starting afresh now. And I think that one of the best ways to like delineate these moments in seasons is when everybody's hair changes. I remember as a youth watching Deep Space Nine, and I think it was The Way of the Warrior season 4 premiere. Like everyone shows up with different hair.
Very different hair.
You know, that was when Avery Brooks had gone completely bald. Like he'd shaved his head, and Dax had different hair, and Kira had different hair, and Dax had gotten a promotion. And you're just like, it's been a little bit of time and things are different. And that was sort of the vibe of this one. Like,
Mhm.
it's been a couple months, and, you know, Uhura's got awesome hair now. Not that she didn't have awesome hair before, but she's got even more awesome hair now. And in the same way, it's like their emotional states have changed, and we have to interrogate those. And Patel is going to get a new ship. Like, all these stories are kind of starting now.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, and like I remember how much time we spent talking about Lon and how she had been so weighed down by her trauma and her past in the first couple of seasons, and that finally, because of what she was able to overcome, she was going to be lighter. And so it's like, well, what does lighter Lon look like? Like, how does that work?
It's great.
Well, and one of the things that we took, not from the fan response, but just getting to know the actors,
Mhm.
is that Christina is such a great dancer that, like, that the moment with her and Spock, one of the things that has been the same in every draft from the very first until the very last was that opening scene of Christine with La'an and Spock dancing, because Christina Chong is such a great dancer, and we're just like, oh, it would be great for her to do this.
Mhm.
So you take some of it from where you need the characters to go, and you take some of it from, like, it would be fun to do that. You know, Babs is a great martial artist, and so we're like, let's have him, like, kick a lot of ass.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You mentioned Ortega's brother. Let me ask this. We have reason to believe on Open Pike Night that perhaps at one point she was going to have a sister. Is that something that changed, or are we incorrect in that assumption?
That is true. She was at one point in a very early iteration going to have a sister.
Okay.
And through the normal process of figuring stuff out, it became a man and a love interest a little bit, perhaps, for someone else on the show.
We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see.
And certainly by the time we did the first draft, though, it was a man.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we've seen through episode 5, so we can only assume that the last half of the season is the bartender story arc, right? Like, we change focus completely.
I hope that comes back. I so want that to be one of those breadcrumbs
Yeah.
you've been laying.
Okay, well, I'll tell you a behind-the-scenes story about our bartender,
Oh,
about the new bartender from the station, right? Our three-armed friend, whose name is Kolzon Kelsing, which is a combination of Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, who are two of my friends who also write the Star Trek comics.
okay.
They wrote the sort of the flagship Star Trek book for the last several years, and now they're doing this new Star Trek: The Last Starship book, and it was just a shout out to them. But we all were just, like, obsessed with the idea of a three-armed bartender because of the character in the original series, or sorry, the animated series, and it was such a difficult thing to achieve, though, and so frankly so difficult and so expensive that, like, don't get your hopes up seeing this character done.
I loved
So
watching
great.
it.
That was like 25 meetings.
So many meetings, and
Just look at the arm there. Is that? And you can, and do you see that? And it's just like, oh my God.
so almost every time you see that character in the show, almost
Mhm.
every single shot that they're in, there's a different methodology for how the third arm is achieved,
Mhm.
which, you know, is very impressive from the production logistics perspective, but very difficult.
I was just hoping you got the same person who played David Bowie's arms in Labyrinth for the whole thing, but
Just doing the contact juggling. Yeah.
you kind of mentioned originally seeing them on the dig, but now, you know, they show up at the end of the cold open and Chapel goes, "He's my date." And then we get that classic TOS stinger, dun, dun, dun. Like, is that in the script, or do you just trust the director, editor, composer to kind of do the right thing in that moment?
I don't remember if it stayed in the final draft, but I remember the first draft when she showed up and he was there, that the stage direction was something like, and we see Spock's heart shatter into a million pieces all over the transporter room floor. And it's
I love
things
that.
like that. The way that we as writers communicate tone
Mhm.
to all the other departments is not necessarily through saying we do a classic TOS like sting, musical sting, but rather something like that, where you get the emotional tenor of it, and then they
Mhm.
pick it up, and then they find ways to, call back to previous shows, or a lot of the fun of working on this show is the number of people that love Star Trek in all its forms and find ways to do those little, you know, hints at previous things.
Man, I can tell you right now, Jesse is going to be really bummed he wasn't able to make this recording. This is the kind of stuff he eats up. So here's a question you'll either love because you definitely thought of it, or hate because you intentionally didn't. Corby figures out Spock's door code by looking at his profile on the data pad. What is Spock's door combo, and is it logical to use something that's so easily discernible? Is that the script?
Honestly, I have no recollection of how we came to that.
Yeah, I got nothing.
That's fair. That's
no.
fair.
Hell yeah.
We'll speculate.
This feels like one of those things where, just assume that we were very smart, and that Corby was smart, and that Spock was smart, and everyone was smart.
In 2023, everybody was like, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah, that's great. That's
You've
great
slept
stuff.
since then. Yeah.
I have no reason not to assume that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely not.
Well, let's pull back to big picture again real quick and ask each of you. I mean, what do you think when everything's said and done, Strange New Worlds is over, people are looking back, what do you think they'll remember this episode for?
Rhys Darby.
Yeah.
Fair. That's fair.
I'm a huge fan of Rhys Darby, and I will admit that when we did the sort of table read for the episode, reading through the script, it was on Zoom, and I definitely stayed after to just talk to Rhys Darby. Like, he was the last one on the Zoom with me, and I wouldn't let him leave because I was just like, I just have a bunch of questions. I want to just tell you how awesome. Anyway, I think that his performance is great, and obviously there's a lot of emotional stuff that comes in the episode as well. That's gonna bear fruit over the course of the rest of the season and series. But to me, that's the standout.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on that, Kirsten?
I mean, I don't know why my brain just went to the gowns. Like, do you remember all the discussions we had about, are they wearing their uniforms? Are they wearing, like, what's happening?
We made like a spreadsheet to show who was wearing what.
But like, it was like when it was just the Centennial, I think the gowns made less sense. It was more like a Federation thing. But once it became a wedding, then this desire that we all had to put them in these fabulous things was then now we were just free to play. And her Chapel in particular.
Yeah.
It's stunning. I'm not saying that's like the big emotional takeaway there, but like for me, it was great. It was really cool.
It was executed at a very high level, I think, is because it's easy to write. Chapel walks out and she's in a beautiful gown, and it's hard to actually kind of make you, take a second with it as you look at it. And you're like, wow, that's kind of amazing. And like, there were so many, like everyone in that, and you can see little character choices in what they're wearing. Ortegas is wearing her dress uniform, and Uhura's not. Like, there's just choices there that were all discussed ad nauseum.
We will be doing a 2-hour conversation with Bernadette Kraft on this episode alone. I am sure of it. Cannot wait. Well, speaking of, you see everyone in the gown at the wedding scene. Let me ask you about possibly my new favorite bit of ADR ever from any movie or TV show. When Corby is turned into a dog, someone in the audience goes, "Aww," and I lose it every time at that moment. Is that all in the script? Can you tell us which character in the audience said that? Give me anything about that.
I don't know about that. I do know that Henry Alonso Myers, our co-showrunner on Strange New Worlds, I worked with him on The Magicians before this, and we had an episode where someone basically had a hand grenade that turned people into puppies, and that was definitely top of mind when we were working on that segment. And my favorite, like, little bit of acting in the episode is Sam Kirk looking down at the dog as if it's still a person and just being like, like, he just gives it like such a sweet little, like he's hearing Spock's vows, and he's like, that's sweet. And he looks to the dog as if the dog feels the same way. And that definitely, I don't think that was scripted. I think that was 100%, just the actor on the day having an instinct. It's so good.
Oh, so good. I love how he's just holding the leash like he just adopted the dog in that moment or something.
Well, and there's like certain characters who kind of give it a moment of like it gives them pause when he turns into a dog, and then they just kind of go about the business of the wedding. But like for a second, you feel like Battelle thinks this is weird that there's a man just turned into a dog, and then she just kind of was like, okay, well, it's a Vulcan wedding.
That's amazing. Oh, so obviously this went through a lot of changes, like you described, and I love hearing about all these changes. Can you think of, now that you've seen it, any deleted scenes that were shot, or scenes from the final script that just didn't quite make it onto the screen?
I don't think there were any full deleted scenes.
Okay.
No, I mean, there's so many, in a way, there were so many deleted scenes because there are so many other drafts of it.
Sure.
But I don't think, but by the time we actually were in production, I feel like we pretty much, I think there was one moment in an interim draft, I'm not sure if it was in the final draft, where we see Rhys Darby's character a little earlier. Where it's like there's a POV outside of the Enterprise, and you see something weird out there, and it's around when Mr. Scott is beaming Corby and Chapel aboard. I feel like there was a VFX shot that maybe we ended up not putting in.
Oh, okay.
Was there much improvising? I could see, especially during like the wedding scenes.
Some of the stuff that Rhys says in the wedding, I think, was improvised, but frankly, this one was, it really, it changed so much, but then the actual episode really does resemble the script a lot more than some other ones that I've worked on, where we reorganized the episode after the fact, where we moved scenes around or, cut a scene in half and put the pieces in different places. Like this one kind of stayed true to the script.
Well, I felt like, my recollection, and I could be wrong about this, is that we were rewriting as they started shooting. It was like it sort of had to be the final version of it because we were still working on it right up to the last minute. I think I remember Dana was on a plane and I was sending her pages. Like it was,
yeah. Well, because we were supposed to start production on season 3 the day after, or basically the day that the writer's strike started.
That's right.
Was the first day of ostensibly the first day of our production. So we had to get a bunch of drafts in to be ready to shoot. And then we stopped for months. And then when we came back, we delayed the production a little bit so we could kind of get our feet underneath us a little bit more. And that was when a bunch of changes happened.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask a little bit more about Rhys and the wedding planner. The idea that the reason he's doing all this is just because Corby kind of annoyed him. Because he's smug and annoyed him. Like, was that from the beginning, or did you guys struggle with the reasons and finally fall on that? It feels perfect in the moment, but I could see that being like a long deliberation.
No, I feel like that.
I don't think it was.
I think that the feeling was basically, what is the audience going to think about Corby? And can we put Rhys's character in that same headspace? Because then it's very understandable that you're just like, oh, this guy. Like, he's just so perfect and handsome and charming. And I know that we had discussed the fact that because he was an archaeologist, that perhaps he had delved too deeply somewhere and had pissed off something. But that was not, it really, it always felt like the character is doing something kind of silly. And so his reason can't be too serious, or you're just like, well, what a buffoon. So especially when you reveal that he is in essence a child, it's like, well, yeah, he saw some guy he didn't like and was throwing mud in his eye.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Another favorite trope of mine that this episode does is anytime Star Trek characters start listing off a series of plot points from other Star Trek episodes, trying to figure out what's going on. Is that as fun for the writers to write as the audience to watch?
Well, I had fun writing it.
It's basically what the writer's room is like all the
Sure.
time, right? It's just like, well, isn't that kind of like this one? Oh, but isn't it more like this one? You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think I really do think there were 5 or 6 more of them before it was. Eventually, it came down to the couple. But yeah, that was what could have been this. Could have been this.
Well, I mean, I do have to say, like, Kirsten, your name comes up from other guests on this podcast again and again and again. Like, everybody's like, oh, Kirsten, she knows everything. Like, yeah, Kirsten, like, we ask Kirsten. If we have a question on the guest, we ask Kirsten. Like, I hope it is conveyed to you by fans and by your coworkers just how truly respected you are for your extensive work and knowledge of Star Trek. Like, it's, I don't know if anybody else has been mentioned quite so much as you have. So, yeah.
Really? That's weird.
Well, if you don't, she's going to come around and start breaking legs. So she's
I'm very nice, David.
very
Very nice.
intimidating.
I'm very easy to work with.
She knows every Klingon move and how
Yeah,
to use the
exactly.
batleth, I'm sure.
You wrote some of them, yeah.
That's very kind of you.
Oh, it's true. So you said the gowns were the first thing that popped in your head. The first thing that popped in your head last time you were on when we asked for a one-word tease was Chapel's Flowers. Why do you think that's what was in your mind at the time?
Well, I believe it had to do with me wondering how that was going to work.
Okay.
Quite honestly, how it would play.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was it was hard to convey the different ways he was trying to wreck it. And you're like, well, how does a guy exactly do that?
Oh, okay.
And I know that they were preserved and special and like whatever, but yeah, it might have just been my like, I wonder how that's going to go.
How do you feel it went?
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. It was fun to, it was a great aha moment. Great for us to be like, oh, there it is. There's one of our one-word teases for the season. So it's always fun when we get to figure those out.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you can think about the episode you want to share that we haven't asked about yet? There's so much to cover, I know, but there's also a lot we need to keep secret right now. So, although I want to ask about certain things.
Oh man,
so clever, you two, so clever.
There's a couple things that came up because literally the writer of a subsequent episode came into either the writer's room or our offices or whatever and was just like, "Hey, you got to put this in there," and we're like. Okay. All right. We'll find some place for that.
I bet I know what that is. That's the one I'm thinking of, but good. It's nice. It works.
Yeah. Very nice. Yeah.
I think that the only other thing I have to say about this one is that it was one where I was totally not sure while we were working through draft after draft of it. Like, is this something? Is there anything here? And it ended up being a really fun episode, and I'm proud of it. And I'm proud to have worked with Kirsten on it because we had a lot of fun. And it's just there are moments on this show that feel like, like very literally childhood dreams come true. And writing a couple things in this one definitely, we're checking some dream boxes for me.
That's great.
Things that you could never have seen in any other episode of Star Trek. Like that's always kind of what you're hoping to do because there's so much of it, but yeah.
And the execution of this one, there were a few things in the production that are just so beautiful. The Starbase One, the environment, which I feel like we never say out loud in the episode now that they're in the Archer Dome.
I don't think we do, but yeah.
But so that's the Archer Dome of the
Starbase
Starbase One, and that the idea was that this is like they've built these environments for people to go. Like, well, you've been in space for a long time. Do you want to go trout fishing or whatever, like Mbenga does? And that as we saw the art come in, I was like, well, as concept art goes, this is absolutely incredible. But what'll it look like on the day? And then it's so amazing. And if you were to take away the AR wall LED volume technology that we used specifically for those sequences, literally impossible on a television budget to achieve the visuals in this episode. And for what is essentially a rom-com, like a relatively low stakes rom-com, to have that level of production value, I feel like people don't really understand what an achievement that is and what a incredible revolution this technology has brought, because it's just, this all would have been in a hotel ballroom if we were making this in the 90s or early 2000s. It would have just been like, oh, look, there's a window overlooking Earth.
It's the Sheraton.
Yeah, it would have been the Sheraton. It would have been the Toronto Sheraton. It would have been literally the hotel that the writers stay at when we're in Toronto.
Not the actors, the one the writers stay at.
Yeah, no, not the good one that they put the actors in.
I'm glad you said that, because this is, gotta be the lowest stakes of a Strange New Worlds episode for sure. Like, as far as consequences or potential consequences, like, yeah, there's reality warping, but we're not talking, sacrificing a child to save an entire civilization, or sacrificing, trying to prevent.
Rhys was going to kill all those people at the end. That was
yeah.
I'm going to kill you.
It could still be a dog.
Yeah.
Where would that have
One
left
line.
Chapel?
The one line that I feel like it's not in the script, and I feel like it was improvised, but if Kirsten, if you remember differently, please correct me. But when he says, when Rhys says to one of the guests that you have no mouth, how does that work? Okay, that's actually cool. You're fine. Like, all of that, I feel like was him making it up.
Every one of those rants needs the one moment where he's like, okay, you're okay. And that was a perfect reason for him to think that individual was okay by his book. I had a grin on my face for this whole episode. Like, both times I watched it, I appreciated it more the second time, like realizing just how layered it was. So well done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, do you both have a favorite line from the episode? Either one that made it in, or maybe one that didn't make it in?
My favorite is definitely Rhys saying to his omnipotent father, "I'm 8020, Dad." I remember being in Henry Alonzo Myers' office, and it was relatively, like, we don't stay late on this show. It's a very humane working environment most of the time, but this was one of the few nights where we stayed late, and I was in his office, and we were talking about what that interaction would be like, how the characters would relate to each other. And that was the vibe that I was really hoping for, was that he was just so petulant and just like, "Oh, Dad."
All right, Kirsten, favorite line.
Well, so this one has a special place in my heart, probably because I wrote it and I just really liked it. But it was after the wine selection scene where Spock is trying so desperately to get, Sam to realize what's actually happening here, and he just won't. And so he's like, "Find the Chardonnay." And the next line after that, where Corey's like, "I might have gone with the Pinot." It was like, these two guys are in it together now in a way that who could have foreseen a mere act and a half ago.
That's the dynamic that works, though. That's what raises this episode above what, oh yeah, we'll just have them at each other's throats the whole time. No, like, force them to have to work together. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about this episode. It's been great. And I understand at least David's got one in the second half. Kirsten, do you have an episode in the second half as well?
No, I don't.
No.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
No, I was moved over to Academy really just as I finished writing this one. And I was in the room on Academy when we were doing the first revisions before the strike. And then by the time the strike happened, I was back in Academy pretty much full time.
We would sometimes literally have to chase her down in the parking lot because she was so busy. Be like, no, I have questions.
I most of the time I would still work out of the Strange New Worlds offices, but I would come in early and be in my office doing the other writer's room. And then I would just walk outside and sit with you guys for a while. And then I would go back to my office and be with them for the afternoon. You guys are my favorite people, and I miss you all so much. It kills me on a daily basis.
Yeah, I miss all the strange new writers.
I do.
Well, you can find more of them here on Strange New Words going forward for all of the season 3 episodes. But we're very much looking forward to Academy as well, Kirsten. So we're excited for everything you're doing.
It'll come out someday. I'm not even sure when at this point, but someday y'all will see it. It'll be good.
Oh, no objections here.
Yeah. Well, it has been great having you both on the Open Pike Night stage for Strange New Words. We appreciate it, and hopefully all the fantastic feedback is starting to pour in from folks who have seen the episode today. Be sure to follow Open Pike Night anywhere you can, openpike.com. Kirsten and David, do you have anything to plug or share with anybody before we go?
Continue to watch as much Star Trek as possible.
Absolutely. Excellent. And I'm very excited about the upcoming release of our Con podcast, which has also been occupying a tremendous amount of my time over the last couple of years. So, but it will be out soon, and I'm very excited for people to hear it.
Well, if you wanted the Venn diagram of podcast listeners and Star Trek fans where that overlaps, you found the right audience.
Yes, you did. Absolutely, you did.
And on our end, if you want to watch this episode, you can tune in over at YouTube on our channel. We've got this and the previous episode, Hegemony Part 2 with Davy Perez over there. And be sure to tune in tomorrow. Here on the podcast feed, we'll drop our interview with Rhys Darby. That's right. It's a quick one, about 20 minutes, but we have a lot of fun. And we brought up some of the stuff mentioned here in today's episode as well. That's right. I recorded this message from the future, the one you're listening to now. Let's get all timey-wimey and head back to the past.
All right. Well, it's been a long night, so we have to go make sure we're ready to record the real episode for this, for Open Pike Night. But for now, you've been listening to Open Pike Night Strange New Words. Be sure to clean up after yourselves. Be sure to tip your servers. You can go anywhere you want, but you can't stay here.